inshallah, every year, and we're all filled with happiness. And hopefully, inshallah, this is not the last Ramadan which Allah Azza wa Jal blesses us all with. Eid Mubarak to all of you and to your families, and Allah Azza wa Jal accept our a'mal in this blessed month. On a day like this, something begins and something ends. Today, the end and the beginning meet. The end of Ramadan and the beginning of post-Ramadan. The beginning of the life that comes after the month of Ramadan. That on nights like these, the human being begins to ask himself, the du'as I was absorbed with, the Quran I was filled with, and the supplications which my ears were listening to and my heart was bouncing towards, now come to an end. That when you look at certain days that Allah Azza wa Jal gives insan, you'll realize that there are certain moments of charging. What does the verse of Allah Azza wa Jal say in Surah Al-Baqarah? He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ فِي أَيَّامٍ مَعْدُودَاتٍ. He says, and remember Allah in calculated days. Meaning there are certain days where the rays of Allah Azza wa Jal are stronger than other days. Months of Muharram, for example. Days in the month of Rajab, yet more specifically in the holy month of Ramadan. These are days where the rays of Allah Azza wa Jal reach further than they usually do. Because we know typically tasbih is done with rosary beads in our hands, or the Quran in our hands. Yet on a night like this, or in the days that have passed rather, the holy month of Ramadan, they say your breath is considered as tasbih. Sleeping is considered ibadah. Now does this mean for dhuhr time I go and I sleep and this is considered as my salah? No, obviously not. Yet, no as-sa'im ibadah, as it was said, that the sleep of the fasting one is considered ibadah, meaning the rays of Allah Azza wa Jal on days that have passed us are open and are further than the typical day. That's why you'll notice there are a number of chargers within the religion of Islam. Dua, for example, the power of dua cannot be emphasized upon. That they would come to our first Imam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and they would tell him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what is the distance between the sky and the earth? To where the Imam alayhi salam would say, Da'watun mustajabah, an answered prayer. That dua on one level is a charger. Salah, no doubt, is considered a time where one feels low, where one feels disconnected from Allah Azza wa Jal. All of a sudden he goes into 2 rak'at and he feels a certain connection with Allah. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, 2 rak'at of salah are better for me than the world and that which is in it. Imagine. Rasulullah over here sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is seeing a different type of salah that we may be seeing. He says the world in its entirety cannot be equivalent to 2 rak'at of salah. Salah, Quran, remembrance of Ahl Bayt alayhi salam. Yet you'll notice within the holy month of Ramadan, all of these chargers unite. It becomes a supercharger. See, if you go and search up supercharger, they lead you to a certain piece that's put in a car and it increases the pressure or increases the oxygen, something along these lines. I'm no mechanic, but the example is there. You'll notice Ramadan is a supercharger. There are certain individual chargers, yet the holy month of Ramadan is when all of these elements come together and give you a push uncomparable to any other. Those days have left us. Another month of Ramadan has been written in the record of our lives. And let's pray to Allah Azza wa Jal that this is not the last Ramadan. Yet if it is, that should be an encouragement to insan. This is all what? So firstly, what do we have? We have the end of Ramadan. The days of charging are gone. Yet now the true test begins. You'll see Muharram, we never know if it really was beneficial until the month of Muharram ends. As-Salah, we never know if it was beneficial until the end comes. That's why they would see Imam al-Khomeini, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, praying very fast. Notice how the end and after Salah is what's important, not the Salah itself. Salah itself is essential, don't get me wrong. Yet it's after Salah that we know if the Salah itself is accepted. They would come to the Imam, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, they would tell him, oh Imam, your Salah was kind of quick. You know, because we expect our Muraja to have a very nice flowing beard, praying somewhere in China, his ruku'ah 25 minutes, his sujood maybe 45 minutes, his qunut, he recites Mafatih al-Janan, all of it, he recites Surah Al-Baqarah, he has to. Now sometimes we have this notion, they would tell him, Imam, your Salah was very quick. He would say, it doesn't matter. You tell me, Imam, Salah, what do you mean doesn't matter? He would say, let me tell you that it begins once it ends. Look at the words of Imam. He says it begins once it ends. Salah in its essence is vital. Yeah, how do I know if my salah is accepted or not? I just said, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, didn't I? I said, guide me to the straight path. How do I know if I was truly eager for this straight path if I don't go and search for it after salah ends? That Ramadan today, this is the first day after Ramadan. What begins today? This is when I begin to take that absorption. I take the Quran, I take the dua, and I begin to implement it in my life. That I used to recite every single day, Allahumma inni aftatihu al-thana'a bihamdik. Every day. Does this dua have an effect on my heart, or is it simply something being repeated? Allahumma inni aftatihu al-thana'a bihamdik wa anta musaddidun lis-sawabi bimannik. Notice the dua of the Imam alayhi salam. He says, oh Allah, inni aftatihu al-thana'a. I open up my thankfulness bihamdik, with your praise. The Imam alayhi salam showing his gratitude to Allah. I said that. Will I apply it? Today I find out. Quran, every day I recited a certain part of it, inshallah. I recited it. Now, how did I apply it? Today that starts. I fasted from food. Today, am I going to fast from that music that I was so attached to? Today, am I going to fast from disrespecting the elderly that I used to show disrespect towards? I fasted from food. Today, am I going to fast from that bad habit that was bothering me my whole life? I fasted from food. Am I going to fast today from showing, for example, disrespect or arrogance or greed or hypocrisy in society? That today is the day that we find out. That just as yesterday something ended, today is something that begins. That's why if you were to take this whole understanding, you can summarize it into 3 R's. The first R is when you realize the source. The holy month of Ramadan allowed us to get exposed to the Quran. I may not recite the Quran every day. I may not recite Dua al-Iftitah every day. I may not, for example, come and attend masjid every day. Yeah, I was forced to be exposed to these kinds of things. I realized the source. Number one, I have to realize it. I have to taste the sweetness of it. Notice Ibrahim ala nabiyina wa ala alihi wa alayhi salam. Ibrahim, he would go and look for the source. فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. He saw a planet, then he saw the moon, he saw the sun. He would see these 3 elements, and he would begin to ask himself, where is Allah? Where is this Lord that is omniscient, omnipotent? He would see the planet first. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الْكَوْكَبَ قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. He saw the planet, says, this is my Lord. No. Allah does not disappear. He would continue, he would see another entity. He would say, that's my Lord. No, it's not. He would see the moon and the sun, perhaps not in that consecutive or chronological order exactly. Yet, he would see the sun, he would see them. He would say, this must be my Lord. What is he doing? He's searching to realize the source. That's why when the Imam alayhi salam comes and he mentions in Haj Ali Al-Najjar, one of the first things, if not the first thing he says, أَوَّلِ الدِّينِ مَعْرِفَتُهُ. He says the first thing of religion is to know it. That Ramadan exposed me to the source. Number one, 3 R's I mentioned. First R, realize the source. Second R, I begin to receive the source. You know, sometimes we go tanning, especially now the sun is beginning to come out. Do you see people on the beach laying down in front of the sun? He's just, what are you doing? I'm tanning. Okay, that's excellent. Month of Ramadan is a time to let my soul spiritually tan. It's when you're just laying in front of the rays. I mentioned rays. Allah Azza wa Jal, Inna lillahi nafahat. Look at the hadith. فَتَعَرَضُ لَهَا. To Allah there are nafahat. All of a sudden there's a breeze, there's a ray, there's a push coming from Allah Azza wa Jal. فَتَعَرَضُ لَهَا. Expose yourself to them. The hadith comes and says, if you're translated in that way. Secondly, I begin to receive. I tan in the light. I begin to enjoy it. Not only am I exposed to it, but now I receive it. I allow it to enter my heart. Look at the words of the Imam alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi ta'ala alayhi. Notice how he wants nothing to be received except the love of Allah, except the remembrance of his Creator. Azza wa Jal, he says, I sat at the gate of my heart and I allowed no one except Allah to enter in it. Look at the words of the Imam alayhi salam. He says, I sat at the gate of my heart and I allowed no one except Allah to enter it. What is the Imam alayhi salam saying? Of course, I give you the hadith, paraphrasing it. He comes and he says, I sit next to the gate. I want no one, world, He says, Ya baydaa'u ya safra'u khurri ghayri. O white, referring to silver. O yellow, referring to gold. He says, deceive other than me. I have divorced you 3 times. You know, Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, if you were to bring him sand in one hand and gold in another, he would not see one above the other. Because he's divorced himself from this world. That's why the Imam alayhi salam, sometimes we think he wanted khilafah. No, Khilafah wanted Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen wasn't interested in it. The only thing is that he comes and he describes it as a shirt. It only fit on me. You want to wear the shirt, take it, but you're going to rip it. That by the time they gave it to him, what kind of... Sometimes we blame Obama. I mean, if you really look at it, the administration he received wasn't the best condition. That the same thing with Imam alayhi salam. That the Imam, they gave him a shirt which was ripped. He was the only one qualified. Khilafah was hungry for him. He didn't want the chair. The chair wanted no one except Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Yet the Imam, what does he say? He says, you see this whole power? Once he's Ibn Abbas, he sees him patching his shoe. They say the shoe of the Imam, he would patch it so much, it would be embarrassed from the patcher. Notice. He would patch it so much. Some may have mentioned this narration perhaps on the authority of the Imam alayhi salam perhaps. You'll notice that he would be patching. Ibn Abbas would come to him. He would tell him, Ibn Abbas, do you see my shoe? He says, yes. He says, do you see that khilafah? He says, yes. He says, the shoe is more worthy to me than that khilafah. That the Imam didn't want it, yet he saw it as a means. He saw it as a tool to establish the justice of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet the Imam, what does he say? He says, I sat next to the gate and I allowed no one except Allah Azza wa Jal to enter it. That he wanted to receive. Number 2, I receive. Month of Ramadan, we've realized the source. We were exposed to Quran, to dua, to message of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, to salah. These are all being what? Exposed to the source. Number 2, we've received it, inshallah. Hopefully some of that which was heard and some of that which was attended to entered the heart. Because sometimes you can listen. You may hear something, but you're not necessarily listening. So therefore, secondly, I receive it. But number 3 is most essential. I take that which is within me. I've already realized the source. I've already received the source. Now I begin to reflect the source. Today we begin the status of reflecting. That the days have ended, brothers and sisters. If really Ramadan, subhanAllah, how fast did it go? Just the other day you were looking for the moon to see when Ramadan is going to begin. And just a few hours ago, or a few days ago, they were looking for the moon to see when Ramadan is going to end. That you'll notice, you know, Imam Ali alayhi salam, يَوْمٌ لَكَ يَوْمٌ عَلَيْكَ, one day for you, one day against you. That one, you see that cloud, never do you say, I saw that cloud again. This Ramadan is gone, never is going to come back again. That I begin to reflect. I go in my society, and let me ask myself today, am I going to give the world something that it didn't have before? This is a very essential question we need to be asking ourselves on a day like this. The first day post-month of Ramadan. What can I give? What can I leave behind for the world? That the world can say, that is something we're in need of. Have I hurt somebody? Today is the day to mend the relationship with them. Have I taken something unrightfully from somebody? Today is the day to give it to him. Have I spoken about somebody unjustly? Today is the day to go and apologize from him. Because when you really look at it, when you wrong somebody, all that it's hurting is you. And I mentioned this when speaking about the grudge. The grudge, all it does, it messes up the individual himself who's grudging, not the one who's being grudged upon. Therefore, you'll see the dua, what does it say? It says, Allahumma ja'al quwwati fi ta'atik. Notice the reflection in the hadith of the Imam alayhi salam. He says, Oh Allah, let my power be through your obedience, fi ta'atik. وَنَشَاقِي فِي عِبَادَتِكَ, and my working and my struggling and my efforts in your worship. وَرَغْبَتِي فِي مَا يُجِبُ لِي أَلِيمَ عِقَابِكَ, and my eagerness from that which prevents me from your hellfire, Ya Allah. يُجِبُ لِي أَلِيمَ عِقَابِكَ. That on a night like this we ask ourselves, have we taken these 3 into consideration and we apply them, inshallah, today? Ramadan, brothers and sisters, has ended. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept our a'mal, to allow us to realize the blessings of Ahlul Bayt, the blessings of the religion of Islam, to receive it in our hearts, and then on a 3rd level, to go out in the world. School starts, for example, in a few months for some students. Am I going to go in that school, be affected, or am I going to be an affector? Because you have one of 2 individuals in this world. You have the leader, you have the follower. You have the in-shaped, you have the in-shaper. You have the affected, and you have the affector. Today, let us ask Allah to not make us from the ones who are affected wrongfully and affected in a negative way from the world. yet to be ones today that will leave a fingerprint on this world, a fingerprint of positivity, and a fingerprint which will keep the world. And look at the hadith of the Imam alayhi salam. He says, "Kunu zaynan lana wa la takunu shaynan alayna." He says, be an ornament for us. Do not be something which we're annoyed from, shame, something which is not looked at with much pride. Notice what the Imam alayhi salam, he continues and he says, be in a way that the people say, Rahimallah Ja'far ibn Muhammad, laqad arifa kayfa yu'addib shi'atah. May Allah have mercy on the Shia, or may Allah have mercy on Ja'far son of Muhammad. He knew how to discipline his Shia. This is only a way which will make the Imam alayhi salam happy. Hopefully on Yawm al-Qiyamah we don't keep Fatima Zahra alayhi salam waiting too long to give us shafa'ah. Let our bags be empty with sin. Let our shoulders be light with the dhunub, because we don't want to keep Ahlul Bayt waiting too long to give us their intercession. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Muhammad wa ala alihi tayyibin al-tahirin. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد. Just as there are those three elements and the three R's when it comes to the spiritual world, it can also be applied to the political world as well. Now, on the first level, a realization of what's happening in the world is very essential, because when you really look at what's happening in Iraq, what's happening in Palestine, there's only two things that the human being is left to do. Number one, be aware of what's happening, and number two, spread awareness. That some people have come and mentioned that the toll in Palestine has reached over 1,000 people who have died. People in Iraq as well being killed, being beheaded perhaps. They even tell us shrines of awliya of Allah Azza wa Jalla are being attacked. These are all things which are happening, and some perhaps may not even have a strong knowledge of what's happening out in the world. Now on the first level, I realize what's happening, and on the second level, I reflect what's happening to the world. That it's not enough to say my heart feels pain for what's happening in Palestine. My heart feels pain for what's happening in Iraq. Sympathy is excellent, yet when it's channeled, it becomes gold. That when it's staying in the heart, that's good, alhamdulillah. At least the heart is not apathetic towards what's happening in the world. But the second level is to take that pain and to channel it. You'll notice if Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam kept their love as love, they would not have had the effect that they had on the religion. If Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam kept his devotion simply as devotion internally towards Rasulullah, he would not have had the position that he had in many of the battles and in his existence as a human being. Yet love and pain and sympathy that's lying within the heart should be expressed. It should be reflected out to the world. You just go and watch the documentaries that they come and show us. You'll see little children who are dying from fear, not even from the attack, from the fear he's dying. They even say there was because what happens is that we'll read an article and it says 16 Palestinians were killed, 15 Iraqis were killed, for example. Yet what happens is that they're dehumanized. These are all children who also had dreams, who also had aspirations. That was a mother who had a vision, who wanted to do good for her children. That was a father who was striving every day to bring bread on the table of his children. These were all human beings like you and I, brothers and sisters. A lot of times they're dehumanized. There needs to be an effort to humanize the deaths that are taking place around the world. They tell us a little girl, 3 years old if I'm not mistaken, by the name of Yasemin. You'll see a little girl, go look at her picture, Yasemin, 3 years old. You'll see that she was killed by the forces. This was a girl who could have been something when she got older. This was a girl with emotion, a girl with feelings, a girl with love. Yet you'll notice they simply come and attack her. These are people, brothers and sisters, by the way, let us not even label these individuals as humans. Because a human will fight somebody because he's wrongfully done something to him. And even that could be discussed. Okay, you kill the elders, I understand. SubhanAllah, how Karbala repeats itself. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would go to the opposition. He would say, if the elderly have something that you want to hold against them, then tell me, what's the guilt of this 6-month-old baby? What's the guilt? You'll notice what would they do? They would not give him any drops of water to quench his thirst. They would give him an arrow, 3-pronged arrow in that tender neck of his. Umar ibn Sa'ad himself, he says, I saw the hands of Ali Asghar come out and begin to flap like a bird. Imagine the brutality in the heart of such individuals. This little girl by the name of Yasmin, 3 years old, perhaps if I'm not mistaken, you'll notice you ask the question, why are you killing her? They say, no. These are Hamas and these are Fatah, or Hamas to be specific. They're using humans as human shields. You'll notice this is the argument they come forward with. They're being used as human shields. What do you mean human shield? You're attacking a house. Nobody's in there. No soldier is staying in the house. It's a house with family. It's a house with children. What do you mean human shield? You came to them. They're not out there protecting Hamas or protecting whoever it may be. Yet you'll notice these are people, not only do they do wrong, but until their last breath will they defend it. These are the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jalla, brothers and sisters. Not only do they do something wrong, but they live their entire life defending it. This was what Shimr would do. Or you'll see even Umar ibn Sa'ad, after the battle of Karbala, he would go to Yazid. He would put his hands out after he just killed the very grandson of Rasulullah. He would extend his hands like this, like a beggar, like a weak, like a humiliated man, an opportunistic man. He would give it out to Yazid. He would say, "Imla rakabi fiddatan aw dhahaba, fa inni qataltu sayyid al-muhadhaba." He would say, "Fill my hands with gold or silver, for I have just killed the good Sayyid." Notice the hypocrisy. He's good, but I killed him. It's just like that man stealing from the tents of Sukaina alayhi salam while crying. She asks him, why do you cry? He says, because I'm stealing from the granddaughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She tells him, if you're stealing from us and you know we're the granddaughters, why do you steal? Notice the hypocrisy. He says, because if I don't do it, somebody else will. These are people who not only had hate, these are people who not only have animosity filled within their hearts, these are people who will live their whole lives defending it, and you have millions out there who defend them as well.